Hello, Mason the Brock Henderson here, and you'll notice the room is different. Had to get closer to the internet for uploading purposes because the internet kind of sucks. So, this is going to be parts 1 and 2 of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 review. And 2 parts mainly because it's a long season with a lot of stuff, and I want to cover everything. So, let me just start off with kind of how I got into it. Because it really, I said before, it's my favorite show, and there's a reason why. I, saw the previews, wanted to watch it, thought to myself, hey, that looks like a good show. How many times do we say that to ourselves? That looks like a good show, I should watch that. Don't watch it, for some reason. But that's basically what happened. I saw the previews, thought, hey, that looks like a show I might be interested in. It's Marvel, it looks interesting, it's got Coulson. I remember Coulson a bit from the movies. That could be cool. Didn't get around to watching it, and they put it on Netflix right before the second season started, so I started binge watching it a bit. And got through the first 3 episodes in one night, decided time to go to bed, tired now, and didn't pick up for a couple days about. And if you hear any noises, that will be the cat in this room. I know my dogs have been bad, but this cat is like hostile, and it's a better cat than I've ever had, but it still causes a bunch of ruckus and you'll hear stuff, trust me. Anyway, but after I finished those first 3 and didn't pick up on it a little bit, it didn't really capture my attention early on. It was good, but it wasn't anything special. But eventually I was like, you know what, it's Marvel, maybe it'll have something to do with the movies. I'll watch it. And so I started it up again, and then I hit a couple episodes in a row that were just really good, in my opinion, and really grabbed my attention, and then really got me hooked in the show. So I started watching it, and by the end of season 1, I was like, I gotta watch season 2. Hulu'd season 2 up until I caught up with the actual episodes on TV, and so that is how I got started on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And now I'm going to start reviewing. The first episode, pretty good episode, gets you introduced to all the characters fairly well. You get to meet Agent Ward. You learn he's a specialist. He's talking with Maria Hill, which is nice to see her in there. Get a bit of reference to the Avengers. Oh, look, I know her. She was in the Avengers. And then, talking to her and talking about Coulson, helping him. And he's like, what are you talking about? Coulson's dead. I'm level 7. I know the story. And then what happens next is one of the best things about this first season, the jokes. The jokes are spot on. They're very self-aware, because Coulson, as soon as he says, I'm level 7, I know what happened, Coulson walks around the corner out of the shadows. It's like, now you know the truth. Welcome to level 8. And kind of pauses for a second and says, I'm sorry, that was a dark corner and I just couldn't resist. And so many good self-aware jokes like that. Just, I don't know. I really enjoy jokes that kind of make fun of tropes and stuff like that. So maybe it's not for everybody, but it definitely is for me. So anyway, you meet Ward, you find out Coulson's still alive after the Avengers, which, was interesting. I wasn't like, whenever he died, oh no, Coulson! Like, I kind of knew him as that agent that was appearing in all the Marvel movies. So it was interesting to see him back, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Wonder how he came back. Then you meet Fitz and Simmons, Leo Fitz, Gemma Simmons, and they are, just these 2 really smart kind of kids. They look really young. I'm not sure they ever tell their age in the show. Anyway, but you can tell that they're like connected at the hip. They're talking over each other, finishing each other's sentences. They're both just super smart. Fitz is the guy, and he's got engineering smarts, and then Gemma Simmons is the girl. She's biochem. And then finally you meet Melinda May, and don't really know much about her. You just know that Coulson really wants her to drive the bus, which is the name of the plane. And she's very hesitant to. She doesn't want to. I wonder why. Doesn't want to see field work. That's interesting. And then finally you meet Sky, which she starts off as just this hacker is a part of this group of hackers called the Rising Tide, and she takes this video of a guy named Mike Peterson who has super strength, and first thing he does is climbs up this wall, just scales it by busting holes in the side of the building with his bare hands, and just scales the building, goes into this fire, grabs a lady, and jumps down about 6 stories and lands with her in his arms. And Sky gets this all on video, and then comes to him later and says, I'm a member of this group called the Rising Tide. We're looking to expose the truth that organizations like S.H.I.E.L.D. try to hide from us and guard us against. And so, he doesn't want anything to do with her, tells her to go away. And you find out his story a bit later on. He's just trying to help his son Ace, trying to make ends meet, trying to make some money to provide for his son. And so he joins this organization called S.H.I.E.L.D. that are trying to create these super soldiers. And so, he has this thing on his arm that looks like a centipede almost. And so that's where they get their name. And Coulson and the team, they pick up Sky and bring her in for interrogation. You can tell she doesn't like them, but at the same time she's intrigued. Like, she wants to get inside the organization to find out information about stuff. And Coulson convinces her to tell him what happened with Mike Peterson to protect him. And so, that's kind of where this episode goes. They find out about Centipede from her. They find out about Mike Peterson and find out what's going on. Find out that this guy that had this stuff in his arm, like, internally combusted. Like, just that's what caused the fire that Mike Peterson saved the woman from. And the woman turns out to be a doctor, which is important later on, so it's worth mentioning. And so at the end of the episode, Mike is in the middle of this train station, and he's like just frustrated. He doesn't trust S.H.I.E.L.D. because of what Sky said. And at the same time, Sky's with them, so he can't trust her. But Fitzsimmons comes in with this neurotoxin. I can't remember the name of it. It's like neuro something. But it does become important. It's basically like a stun gun type mixture that acts. It's a bullet, but it stuns you. It doesn't kill you. So they come up with this mixture, and it stuns Mike so it doesn't kill him. And that's pretty much how the episode ends. They stop Mike from internally combusting, and Sky kind of joins the team, and they go off to their next mission, which is the next episode. They find this thing called an 084, which is code for an unknown object. And this one's fairly just run-of-the-mill, this old acquaintance of Coulson's finds them where the 084 is. They get the 084, take it on the plane. Episode begins with the plane, like, hole busts open, the guy flies out, and Coulson's like hanging on for dear life. You're like, how's that work? Well, they're about to show you. This old acquaintance of Coulson's is actually wants the 084 for herself. So her team tries to take them all hostage, which gives the rest of the agents, now they have a chance to work together. Now they have somebody to fight against, and so they all work together using their different strengths to take down the bad guy. And so it's the first time they're working together as a team, and it's very nicely done. Because most team-oriented shows where it's a team of people, they need an episode where obviously they all don't like each other at first. It's kind of a cliche now, but it happens in real life. Oftentimes you end up working with somebody you don't like very much, and so they need an episode to kind of get those issues hashed out. They work together, they put their differences aside to fight the enemy, and so it's a good episode. And it ends with them watching from the ramp of the back of the plane as this 084, which was like a pulse gun, gets shot into the atmosphere to the sun. And they're a team now. And then Sky gets a text. It's from the Rising Tide. It says, "Are you in?" She texts, "Yes." And so you're like, okay, I know where they're going with this. She's going to help the Rising Tide hack S.H.I.E.L.D. It's going to be a source of conflict. I got you, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so on to the next episode, which is The Asset. This one is fairly interesting. You meet this scientist who is from S.H.I.E.L.D. and you meet this other character who does become important later on. His name is Ian Quinn. And he's just this billionaire who worked with the S.H.I.E.L.D. scientists way back in the day. And Quinn runs this organization called Cybertech. And basically this is all centered around this device that Quinn and this scientist Hall had worked on when they were younger. And it was just a theory, but it wasn't put into place. But now Quinn has the resources, now he can, and it's called gravitonium. It's like this new element that can shift gravity around you. You see it at the beginning. It's like this, like literally this big. Well, actually, that's the ball it's held in. It's even smaller when they show it, the actual element. And this semi was just driving over it and just lifts up and slams down. And that was all caused by that. Well, Quinn has this bigger one that he's going to use. The scientist knew. And so he let himself be captured by Quinn's agents so he could come in and fix the device to where it would bring down Quinn's little organization by himself. This one's it's got one of those where Sky, they have to trust her. She goes in undercover to his organization. What's it called? Cybertech, right. She goes inside, gets herself an Evite because she's a hacker, and, has to go undercover to pretend like she is, wants in on his organization. And so there's that scene where she tells him that S.H.I.E.L.D. is listening. She takes out the earpiece and drops it in the champagne to, fizz it out. And you're like, she's turning on them? I knew we shouldn't have trusted her. It's all part of the plan. She did that so she could earn his trust, get inside, shut off the laser grid. This one ends though on a bit of a kind of a sad note because the scientist, you think that maybe Quinn is forcing him to do this. Turns out he's not. You find out, like I said, that he is doing this to take down Quinn. But unfortunately for Coulson, that means that he and Sky and Ward, like I said, cats. Who needs it? But you find out that he's doing this just to take down this guy, and it's going to take down all of the main characters almost, because they're all inside. And so Coulson, it shifts the gravity in the room, which is pretty cool to watch. I'm going to move this away so she doesn't hit the power button. But all the gravity is like shifting in the room. So at one point Coulson and him are on the ceiling, and then next instant they're on the wall. So it was pretty cool to see that. Very, very well done shot. And it ends with, Coulson hears from Fitz and Simmons that he needs to put a catalyst in the gravitonium to stop it. And so he shoots the glass. He has this kind of intense little speech with the scientist. I understand you had to make the hard call. So do I. Shoots the glass out. Scientist falls into the gravitonium and stops it. And that's kind of how that episode ends. You see the gravitonium, and it shows him like trying to get out, but it never really comes back into play. Gravitonium does though. The next one is I Spy, and once again, very interesting. Nothing too shocking. There's this woman who, she goes inside this train filled with all these guys with masks on, and they all have a briefcase. And she just goes inside the train, closes her eyes, shuts off the lights, takes out all the guys, and then escapes with the one briefcase in like 20 something briefcases that was filled with diamonds. It was like a countermeasure to prevent people from doing that, and she was able to do it just by closing her eyes. And so you're like, well, is she psychic? Was she able to, and of course everybody in S.H.I.E.L.D's like, we've never had a record of a psychic before, so she's not psychic. And yet it very much seems like she's psychic. You're like, well, what's going on? Come to find out, the girl that did it is this agent that Coulson had trained. Her name's Akila Amador, I believe. But she, when they finally find her, they find out that she has this chip in her eye, and whenever she closes her eyes, she can like see inside of stuff. I can't remember what it's called, but it's almost like X-ray vision. And also the chip in her eye, if she doesn't obey the orders that she's getting, because it's almost like a camera inside of her eye, and they send orders. If she doesn't obey, they can hit the kill switch at any time. And so that becomes the episode. They get her, they fake the feed. Ward is now wearing glasses that is faking the feed, while they try to operate and get that out. Find out about this, not really sure what is going on. She had to steal the diamonds to get this key card to get inside this base, and so Ward goes inside the base and goes into this room where he sees these scientists and this weird carving on the wall. You're not really sure what it is, and you're not even really sure if it's going to tie into anything else later, but it does. Spoiler alert. And so, very, very mysterious episode. And at the end of it, Ward looks in the mirror, and so the video recording shows that it's Ward, it's not Akila, and they like detonate the eye just in time, or no, they like close it up so it doesn't like detonate and kill everybody. So Akila's safe. She's now missing an eye though, and Coulson they backtrack the feed to where her handler was staying, and finally catches up with them. He's like, I'm Agent Coulson of S.H.I.E.L.D. I have some questions for you. And the guy just says, oh no. And his eye just you see his eyes start to fill with blood, and he just falls over. You're like, holy crap, he was being controlled too. Wow, that's intense. And so, it was kind of like, what's going on? Like, it was all mysterious, and you weren't really sure what exactly was going on. But you're starting to, okay, this show is showing me some mysterious stuff. The 5th episode, though, is the one that really caught my attention. And I shouldn't say that, because the 6th episode is actually the one that really got me into it. But the 5th episode was an interesting one. It's called The Girl in the Flower Dress. And it starts off with this guy who can bend fire from his hand. And this girl in a flower dress, she, finds him, and, she's very clearly intrigued. And so she goes, she meets him, and they go back to his apartment, and they start talking a bit about how, he's had this power for a long time, but S.H.I.E.L.D. says that he's not allowed to use it, that it's dangerous. And she's talking about, it's not dangerous. I believe that you have beauty inside you. And, she's talking very highly of him. And then these guys come in that are in like this flame resistant stuff, and they take him away. And so you're like, what's going on? Come to find out, this guy is on S.H.I.E.L.D's index. And so they have information on him. The agent that's supposed to be watching him doesn't know where he is now. They find out that the Centipede program is the one behind this. And so they find the Centipede place. This guy is he's actually starting to believe a bit about what this girl, her name's Raina, starting to get to believe a bit about what she's saying. She gives him this, nobody's going to remember Steve Rogers, but everybody knows Captain America. So we'll give you a name too. And finally decide on Scorch, which is kind of stupid. But he's starting to maybe believe, I could be something. come to find out that Centipede was just needing him because his red blood cells, I think, or his platelets or something, are fire resistant. And it was just the thing they needed for their Centipede mixture that made these super soldiers. It's exactly what they need to keep their super soldiers from combusting. And so they remove all those platelets. So now the guy like bends fire and it burns his hand because the platelets are gone. So, S.H.I.E.L.D. busts in, they take out all the guards. And this is what this show does that's so much different than the movies. Because obviously, in the movies, the bad guy most of the time dies. Coulson died that one movie, but he's not really dead. And then Quicksilver at Age of Ultron, which everybody's like, he's not dead. Maybe he is, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything because it's Marvel. But they never really dealt that much with death. Well, in this one, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they do. Like, they take out all the guards, and Coulson's like, Agent Quan, and you just see Quan kind of like standing there, like blank face. They pull back, and he has like a hole burned through him, where, I'm just going to call him Scorch, because I can't remember his name, his actual name. But he like burned a hole straight through him, and you're like, holy crap, he just killed that guy. And so, Coulson and May are like trapped in the room with him because the lockdown procedure on the building, typical bad guy facility has a lockdown procedure. Oh, and God, I can't believe I forgot about this episode. They find out that this member of the Rising Tide is the one that sold this guy out, the Scorch, whatever his name is. Because he was on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s index, this hacker hacked S.H.I.E.L.D. and sold this information about him to the Centipede Project. And so, they're looking for him, they find him, but he gets away, and then Skye's in his apartment, and you find out they're together. And you're like, see, I knew this was going to become a source of conflict, like she's going to make up some story helping him get away, and then after they're done having sex, May's standing there, and you're like, oh, apparently this is not going to run on forever. And that's what I really like, is that this could have been some like cliche thing where she helps him get away and she's constantly like betraying them, and they're like, what if it's Skye? No, we gotta trust her. But no, it's the 5th episode and May's there. They find out that she betrayed them. And it's not like a huge betrayal, it's just she lied. And that makes her a bit untrustworthy. But I'll get to how they resolve that in a second. What happens is, Skye and this hacker, whose name escapes me, Miles? Yes, Miles. They open up the doors to help them get out. Scorch gets out too, and then finds the doctor that Mike saved in the first episode. And Raina, gets on the elevator, and you kind of see she's a little bit crazy. She gets on and like closes the doors behind this doctor because Scorch is down at the end of the hall. She's like, I hope you do okay, or something. I can't remember her exact words, but she's like, hope you make it. And just door closes. And then Scorch just like burns her to death. Like whenever you've been through these Marvel movies and there's not a whole lot of death, and even when there is death, it's not like these gruesome deaths. It's just like these, they died. But this was like, he, burns the floor, it reaches her, and she just gets consumed in this fire. And you see her, like, she just turns to ash. And you're just like, holy crap. And then the next thing you know, Coulson's decided there's nothing we can do. He's too far gone. And so they, like, inject him with this, I can't remember what they injected him with. But apparently it makes him overload. And so they use, Miles to hack the building, open up certain vents to direct the explosion. But, I mean, that's how Scorch ends. Like, they inject him with the stuff, make him overload, and explode. And it's just like, that's kind of heavy when you think about it. Like, there was nothing you could do to save him, so it's just minimize the damage. And that's pretty crazy to think about. And so, that episode ends with Miles is on probation, pretty much, and Sky, even though she lied to them, they still need her, and she still wants to be a part of the team. But obviously, she can't be trusted. And so they end up like giving her this bracelet that tracks all of her movement, and you find out why she's there, and I think that's the main thing. What Coulson needs to keep her on this team is that finally finds out why she's there, and it's very interesting. She wanted to get into S.H.I.E.L.D. because she wants to find out who her parents are, and S.H.I.E.L.D's the only one with information because she was looking for information about her parent, and she found the S.H.I.E.L.D. files that was redacted. And so she thought maybe if I could get into S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe I could find out about my parents. And Coulson says, look, I'll help you, but no more hacking. No more bending the rules. We're going to do this the right way, through the proper channels. And so, good episode. A lot different than what I was expecting as far as the overall storyline. Just a bit darker tone. The next one, though, man, this one I'm going to spend a little bit more time on, which I'm sure you're thinking, you already spent so much time on the others. But this one really got my attention because this is the one that really got me into the show and made me think, holy crap, I gotta watch the show. It starts off with these campers in the woods, and this guy just hears like this humming. He's like, I'm gonna go check it out. Next thing you know, loud electricity, loud crack. And they go to find out what happened, and he's like floating, dead. And first of all, just the fact that people are dying on the show now, like that's just become a thing. They're dying now, and you're kind of like, holy crap, this is dealing a bit more depth than I was expecting. And so he's dead. S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up to investigate, and next thing you know, they're getting a reading about a similar like electricity field that was about this around the same time this guy died. There was an electricity pulse, and they're seeing the same thing. So they go to investigate. Before they get there, it disappears. They get in, another guy's dead, and he's floating. And they're like, okay, what's going on? And it's like as soon like for the first body, Simmons gets close enough. There's like a little shock, and then he falls. And then they send in their little drones. It gets close enough, shock, falls. And so there's obviously some sort of magnetic thing going on, but they're not really sure what. Finally, they realize that both of these guys are from a firehouse. And so they go to this firehouse, and there's a guy there, and he's got this helmet that looks like one of the aliens. It is. It's a Chitauri helmet from the invasion of New York. And so they get there, and this guy comes down. He's sweating. He doesn't look too good. And so they follow him upstairs, trying to find out what weapon does he have? What is he using to kill these people? And so they get there, and they start talking to him, and all of a sudden this metal cup floats. And Coulson's like, stop, whatever you're doing, stop. And he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. And they find out through all these different clues, the dust, there's dust on this helmet that May ends up finding. And, he's just adamant, he has no idea what's going on. Come to find out, it's not a weapon. There's a virus on this Chitauri helmet that infects them. And then whenever they pretty much all this electricity builds up, and then the electricity explodes inside their skull, pretty much. And that's what killed them. And so when they finally figure that out, the guy realizes he's about to die. And what happens next is probably one of the best scenes in this show to date. And it's nothing too fancy, it's nothing too complicated. There are not even a lot of words. Coulson gets everybody else to leave, and he sits down with this guy, and he just, he starts talking about I died one time. They say I was out. They say I was only out for 8 seconds, but I know it was more. And I saw the other side. I saw what it was like, and it was beautiful. And that's all that needs to be said. And just, first of all, Clark Gray, who plays Coulson, he really just, he nails this performance. I would not want anybody else to be Coulson because he's awesome as Coulson. And so, he just has this moment with the guy, and the guy's like, you should go. You don't want to be a part of this when all this goes down. And, Coulson goes down, and just, the guy dies. And one thing I should mention really fast, so you can kind of get a good picture of it. Coulson's really struggling with what happened after New York. And it's not, it could have been something that they just said, oh yeah, Jerry brought you back from the dead, and that could have been it. But he's clearly he's struggling with this very much. But they're talking about it, and they'll ask, how's Tahiti? It's a magical place. And he's starting to realize that he says that every time. And he's not really sure what exactly is going on. And he's not really sure what happened. And it's becoming a bigger plot point as it progresses. And so they finally, the guy dies, obviously, and they sweep everything. They take the helmet, and Coulson's team, they're the ones that are going to take the helmet to, what's it called? To the sandbox, I think it's called. I can't remember now. But it's just this place where they keep all of the alien stuff. And so, they're on there, and, Simmons is kind of studying a bit, like, the blood and everything that was happening. And, seeing little sparks created in between red blood cells. And, she's talking with Coulson about it, telling him, it moves through static electricity and all of this stuff. And as she's talking, you see, like, a little fork start to rise. And Coulson sees it and she doesn't, because she's still focused on, looking at the blood. And you just see the look on Coulson's face, like, no, this can't be. And he just walks out, and she's, sir? And I'm so sorry, Gemma. Closes the door, and he's like, no way. Like, this can't be happening. This isn't real. What's going on here? There's something else going on here. And so, of course, all the team is, like, freaking out because, this is one of their own. And before you realize it, you're kind of like, no, like, I don't want her to die either. Like, when did this happen? We're 6 episodes in. When did I start caring about this team now? And maybe it was just me. Maybe not everybody has that same reaction. But at this point, like, I was really like, I don't want her to die. Like, I really do care about this team. And, like, you can really feel the emotion. And Fitz, you can see what it means to him because he's working so hard to, like, try to figure out what's going on. And they're, they get into an argument, him and Simmons, because he's so stressed out about it. And he's like, you have to solve this. You can't die. You have to figure out what's going on. And so ultimately they figure out that the Chitauri was immune to it because it didn't kill her or him, whatever. And so if they can get some epithelial cells, maybe they can craft an antidote. And they've been testing it on these lab rats that they've infected with the virus. And so they try it on the rat, and everybody's watching, and it's just this intense scene, like the music is building, and you feel your heart kind of stopping a bit, and you're like, and then the rat's okay, and you're like, yes, and then snap, and the rat dies, and you're just like, are you kidding me? Like, no, and you just kind of feel it for a second. You're like, holy crap, like, this is real. And you see it on everybody else's face too. Like, Skye starts to cry. You see Ward kind of he's been this stoic. And, I should probably mention this too. He and Sky are kind of not getting along because he was training Sky, um, and then obviously when they betrayed him, or when they betrayed her, you know, when she betrayed them, he took it harder than the rest of the team because he had really started to trust her. Um, but he's been kind of stoic, and you can see the despair on his face. May, who's just, she's just this badass agent who normally doesn't have any feelings. You can see her get saddened, and Fitz is obviously distraught. And Simmons just starts tearing up and tells Colson, "Can you tell my dad first? Because I think my mom will want to hear it from him." And you're just like, wow, this it just feels so heavy. You're just like, what is going on? And Fitz is like sitting there, maybe if we can try it again. Maybe we didn't get enough of this. And it's just, you really feel the emotion from Fitz. And I'm going to talk about Fitz a lot because he really, I've already talked about him in my current reviews of this third season because he really is the standout performance through all 3 seasons for many reasons. But in this one, you just feel his despair because this is his closest friend and he doesn't want to lose her. And she takes fire hydrant, knocks him out, and she knows she has to get off the plane because if she, if this thing discharges while she's on the plane, it'll shut off the plane, and they'll be in, it'll kill everybody. And so when Fitz wakes up, he sees the rats alive. It just knocked it unconscious for a second. But Simmons has already opened the cargo ramp, and she's standing at the end of it. And you just like, your heart kind of jumps to your throat for a second. You're like, oh my gosh. And Fitz is like screaming, "No! Simmons! Gemma!" And you're just like, don't. And she just jumps off. And you're like, what? But no, like she. And for a second there, like you really think that was it. And you're like, oh my gosh. And it comes back from the fade to black. Actually, it was more of a cut to black. Simmons is Fitz is grabbing a parachute, and then Ward like comes sprinting down the stairs, grabs the parachute, and he's like, "It worked! It just knocked it unconscious. She jumped!" And so Ward, skydiving after her, and really, the action really picks up here because up until then, like the action's been okay. With the Scorch episode, it got really good, but this is just like you really feel like they're skydiving. The CGI is not crappy, and I've talked about this in the Supergirl review. The CGI was really crappy in that show, so it took away from the believability of it. And this one, you really feel like they're skydiving. You really feel, when they have the up close, you feel like he's actually skydiving. And so, obviously, because the show does not want to kill off one of the main characters early on, he does reach her, he gives her the antidote, and pulls the parachute in time, so she's okay. But, even after that, just seeing everybody's reaction to seeing she's okay, it's really heartfelt. You really believe that they all care about her and didn't want her to die, and you kind of feel that too. You're like, I didn't want her to die either. And so that's pretty much that episode. From here on out, I'm gonna speed through because that's just the main one I want to talk about because up to this day, it's probably still one of my favorites, mainly because it got me in on the show, and that's one of the big things about it. Next one, just you get to see a bit more of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's called the Hub. Fitz and Ward are sent on this 2-man mission alone, and Sky's figuring out as well as the audience, and it's kind of told from her point of view, just because we as the audience are learning about S.H.I.E.L.D. same as she is, which is very nicely done. But she's figuring out about the different levels of S.H.I.E.L.D. You've got the level 8s up at the top, like Coulson and Ward. You got like level 6s, like Fitz and Simmons, and then she's like at the very bottom, like her little bracelet that gave her when she betrayed them keeps her from even getting inside of the the offices where the rest of the team goes in and she tries to step in and magnetizes her to the wall. This one was mainly important just because once again you get to see more of the team working together, and Coulson figures out because he has the right level clearance that Fitz and Ward are in this mission, but they have no extraction team. Like it's just them. And so it is a genuinely interesting episode because you learn about S.H.I.E.L.D. You learn about its downfalls too, which this show is supposed to be about the agents of this organization, and you're figuring out this organization is not exactly the best. Like it makes sense to some point why they have these levels, but at the same time you're like, but you just send in 2 agents to pretty much die. Like that's what I'm getting from this. But of course, because Skye is someone who doesn't like the rules, she convinces Simmons to help her, and they hack the server, find out about the 2-man mission, find out about the no extraction, and extract them. It's a very good episode for Fitz and Ward though, because they're kind of polar opposites. It's just that Ward is very much just the soldier. He's stiff and uptight and doesn't really make a lot of jokes. And Fitz is just he doesn't make a lot of jokes either, but he's laid back. He's smarter, and it's a good episode for both of them because Ward thinks that he's there to keep Fitz safe because he's the only one that can solve the mission, which is just this, it's something engineering, takes out people's weapons or whatever, and he thinks that he's got to protect him so that he can get to this machine. And along the way, they encounter an obstacle, and Fitz uses his brains and his trickery to solve the problem. And so Ward's kind of discovering that, maybe Fitz can handle himself too. And you kind of see Fitz has a little bit of a grudge against Ward because of what Ward did in the last episode, saving Simmons. You can tell Fitz wanted to be the hero, but Ward, he's like, you always have to be the hero. You always have to step in and save the day, even when it doesn't need saving. And so you get a bit more of them together, which is nice. And at the very end, though, it was a little bit weird because this woman who kind of heading this mission, her name's Victoria Hand. She's a high-level agent. At the very end of it, Coulson and everybody, they get there with the bus and they rescue Fitz and Ward. And they're like, this man at the computer's like, Coulson's team got out of there. It's like, are you sure you still want to proceed? She's like, yeah, we knew they didn't need extraction. After all, it's Coulson's team. And you're like, so wait, you knew Coulson was going to break the rules and go give them Don't act like you knew. They just broke the rules, and you act like you knew they were going to... that's honestly how she acts. It's seriously like she wanted them to break the rules and give them an extraction when there wasn't one, even though there clearly wasn't supposed to be one. So I don't know. I'm still unclear on her intentions in that episode. But next up is The Well. And this is one that it's a bit of fun because it happens directly after what happens in Thor: The Dark World. They've gone in to kind of, do damage control almost, try to find out if anything Asgardian was left when Thor came to stop whatever his name is. And so it's kind of interesting to see them after this all happens. What happens after the battle? Well, here comes S.H.I.E.L.D. to clean up the damage. Coulson even makes a remark, it's like, why can't they send a god of cleaning up message to help us with this? So, it's an interesting episode. They find out about this berserker staff, this little cult of people that are like following Asgardian stuff, I guess. But apparently they know about this berserker staff. They read the myths. They find pieces of it. It makes them stronger. It brings out their rage and their hatred. it's a bit more backstory about Ward, which is nice. He grabs one of the pieces and he starts to see this well. You come to find out later that it's his little brother in the well, and his older brother was forcing him to leave his little brother at the bottom of this well and not help him out. He said, if you pull him out of there, I'll throw you in too. And it never really confirmed whether the little brother died in that instance. I think he might have. Because the way that scene with the well ends, it has the older brother saying, "Don't throw him the rope too early, or I'll throw you in there too." And then the older brother leaves, and then Grant Ward throws the rope down there, but then the little brother's like under the water, and he's not grabbing the rope. And so I feel like maybe the little brother died in that instance. But that's what the Berserker staff does. It brings out those memories of hurt and rage, and there are 3 pieces to it. And to help them, they meet this Asgardian who is disguised as just a regular human professor. They figure out he's Asgardian halfway through the episode. But he's played by, I can't remember his name now. If you saw Numbers, he was Charlie's friend, the other nerdy guy. I can't remember his name now. But that's who plays him. And he does a very good job of just, he kind of remains relaxed, and that's kind of what an Asgardian does. Doesn't show fear, has the strength. But at the end of the episode, May grabs all 3 and puts them together. And Ward was barely standing too, so she grabs it, and you see this rage. But then she takes everybody out. She takes out all of these cult followers. And Ward kind of asks her, how are you able to handle all 3? I could barely stand just one. And she's like, I have that rage every day. I have to deal with it. And this is when they start sleeping together. And it felt, at that point, it was kind of like, really, May? Why? I can understand why Ward, you find out later why Ward wanted to, but why did May want to? That's, and I'll get to that. I don't want to spoil too much if you, watching this before you've seen the show. But, you really don't get her reasoning, but that's what happens. They kind of, she's like, I can help you get through some stuff. And Sky was kind of offering the same thing, but not sex. She was like, if you ever need somebody to talk to, you can talk to me. But I think Ward decided May was a better option for reasons you'll discover later. And then come to the penultimate episode, The Repairs, which, it was a good episode, but there are only moments that really captured my attention. The main storyline is that this woman, she was the cause, find out later she wasn't, of these deaths, and then this guy who, he ended up being trapped in this parallel dimension, and so he can come back and forth, but he's there and then he's not. He can disappear at a moment's notice, and so that's he'll do that to protect her because he has feelings for her, and so he protects her, and everybody thinks that maybe she's got telepathic powers because things are moving on their own. It turns out it's just this guy who's practically like a ghost. He appears, moves something, and can disappear. But he's doing it all for her. He's trying to protect her. He caused the accidents at this facility where things went wrong just so she would come talk to him. Even though it was to reprimand him for causing an accident and for stuff like that and filing all these reports. It was just so he could talk to her because he had feelings for her. And so that's kind of why he's still flashing back and forth, is, he's connected to her. He won't let her go. And you find out a bit more about May in this episode. People have been calling her the Cavalry, and you're not really sure why. And come to, they still don't tell what happened. You will find out later. Man, is it a story, but I'll get to that. But it's, they talk about she went in to this facility. There were some S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and a civilian girl inside, and she went in, no weapons, and took out the whole building. And it was a very traumatic event for her. This has come from Coulson. There have been a ton of stories fabricated about this, but Coulson knows the true story because he was there. And he tells Sky it was a very traumatic event, and she's kind of shut herself off ever since then. And she ends up using that story because Coulson kind of told her, you have to let it go. You have to let the girl go. And that's the same word she gives to the guy that's flashing back and forth. You have to let her go. Only then can you really, be at peace. And so, he does. He lets her go, and that's that. He is apparently forever in that other world, which kind of sucks for him. But for the girl, good for her. But you don't really know what does that mean, because she says those words. Coulson never said that to Sky. She says those words, and then she tells Coulson, I told him the same thing you told me. And you're like, let the girl go. Did something what happened? So they're building this mystery, and you're like, what is going on? Finally, we have the bridge. And this is the season 1 mid-season finale. And it gets really intense. They find out about Centipede. They find out about, everything that's going on with them. The Super Soldier Project. Let me just, hang on. Yeah. Okay, got it. I actually have references this time because I don't want to look stupid. But they enlist Mike Peterson to help them take on Centipede and their new super soldiers because they've obviously stabilized the formula now. And this whole time you think that they want Mike Peterson because whatever Fitz and Simmons did with their neurotoxin, they stabilized Mike. And so it seems like Centipede wants him to find out what happened, find out what they did. And this whole time, Raina, she's been in the background a little bit. She becomes a bit more influential in this episode, I guess. But you find out that there's this guy, the clairvoyant, who's heading up Centipede. And he's controlling Raina, and he's controlling this guy in prison. His name's Edison Poe. And they break him out of prison, and they need him for something. And they figure, well, it's probably to test the super soldiers. And so all of this happens. Mike joins them in the fight against the super soldiers. They fight against them. And then one super soldier ends up getting I can't remember, Mike just pretty much took him out, and the other two leave, and they're about to question him, and he's just like, no, please, and then the eye, same thing with the, it's called the chip in the eye. You see the blood flowing in, and you realize Centipede was the one behind Aquila and her stuff. And you're like, okay, so they were the ones behind that too, and they're the Centipede. Okay, I can see that this organization is doing some pretty wrong stuff. But you find out that how did they find that out? Oh, right. Mike calls his son to just check up on him because it's been a while since he's seen him because he's been training at a S.H.I.E.L.D. facility. And find out Raina's there. Crap, That sucks. And so she proposes a trade. They want Mike, and then they'll give his son back, and he won't be harmed. And so they come to this bridge. Ward is, ready to, in the sniper's position. And then they're all there. Mike and Coulson are going to meet Raina at the center of the bridge. Find out the deal was not Mike for his son, it was Coulson for Mike's son. And you're just like, wait, what do they want with Coulson? What does this mean? And so Mike gets his son and runs back to Sky and the team, and they're like, wait, why are they taking Coulson? Ward doesn't have a clear shot, and Mike gives his son to Sky. He's like, stay with Sky, I gotta go make something right. Starts to run back across to Coulson. The bridge explodes, and you're just like, what? Like, oh, when I first saw this, I was shocked. I was like, holy crap, like, this just took a turn for the worst. And man, what a shocking just moment. You're like, no, Mike, no. And then you're like, what about Coulson? I can't remember, I think it was May. What about Coulson? The car that he just got into explodes. And you're like, what the heck? What the heck is going on? What is this? This is... And then a helicopter comes up and Coulson and Raina are in there. You're like, okay. And then they start shooting at Ward, and one shot hits Ward, and you're like, everything's going wrong right now, guys. Everything's going wrong. Somebody call somebody. Everything's going wrong right now. This ain't right. No. And that's that mid-season finale. And a lot of questions unanswered. Things look in disarray. And man, what a cliffhanger to leave on. Just no questions answered whatsoever. Centipede is behind us. You have no idea who they are, what they're doing, what their purpose is. And it really got me, like, I was anxious to see the next episode. I was like, what's coming next? Tell me what's coming next right now. I want to know. And what happens next is something else. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, I guess, record that one too. So, but, as far as, let me just give an overall review really fast. As far as the first 10 episodes go, like I said, the first 4 aren't great. They're good. They're fairly interesting. They have a lot of questions to be answered. But, it's okay. It's interesting. You have to really get into 5 and 6, though. And if you're still not hooked by then, you may not get hooked by the show, because it really does, maybe connects with me on a better level than will most people. But episodes 5 and 6 are really the ones that got me, like, interested in the show, that made me want to watch this show more. So, and then after that, it picked up the pace a bit. The story's got a bit more interesting and ends with a bang. As far literally, explosion. And so that's first half of season 1. I'll give you the second half up next. Peace out.